Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Chewing the Crust. Today I'm joined by Emmy Laybourne. Emmy is an internationally best-selling author, a former actor, a creative writing teacher, and most importantly, a mum. But the
Yes.
reason she's here today is because she found herself in a place many people quietly recognize, overwhelmed, distracted, and caught in an unhealthy relationship with her phone. What followed wasn't blame or self punishment, but curiosity. Emmy began to understand how addictive apps work on the brain and how they affect creativity, sleep, parenting, and connection, and how setting boundaries can be far kinder than we imagine. This is a warm, honest conversation about phone addiction, creativity, boredom, parenting, and finding your way back to yourself. So, Emmy, welcome to Chewing the Crust.
I am so delighted to be here with you, Mark. Thank you for having me on. And that is the best intro that I've ever had. And you really hit it on the head when you said that we do not need to feel ashamed about our phone use. We do not need to feel bad about this. And feeling bad about it doesn't help you get anywhere.
I'm so
That
on board with that. I think shame is the biggest negative driver for our emotions. And I think if we can eradicate shame and build in trust with most of what we do, I think we can overcome anything, to be honest with you.
I I I absolutely agree. And what we need to remember is that smartphones are less than 20 years old, right? So smartphones came out and they were so exciting, when they first came out. And I'm sure you remember this moment of like, uh, you'd say, I need to wash my dog. And someone would say, there's an app for that because there was like an app for everything, It was
Yeah.
so fun that there were apps for banking and this and getting a movie ticket and all of that. Um, but what's happened now is that our phones are so essential for daily life, right? They're tied into absolutely everything. But phones are really addictive. These apps are made to hook us. So it doesn't make sense to feel bad that you're addicted to something that's totally addictive and was marketed to you as being helpful and fun.
I agree 100%. Absolutely. So before we get into that element of what we're going to
Yes.
do, I have
Yes.
a treat, which I think you may be aware of, but for every guest that comes on the episode, I have a poem for them. And I've written a poem for you. So I would like to read that for you, if that's okay. She chased ideas, stories, laughter, and light, but lost a few hours to screens every night, till one quiet moment cut through the noise, and she chose real connection over endless choice. Now, Emmy stands here, honest and kind, showing how freedom begins in the mind. Not shame, not force, just courage and care. Put the phone down gently. Your life is waiting there.
Is it common for people to weep when you read them their poems?
It wasn't until
Yeah.
last time, but it's great when they do. I'm sure it must be good for ratings.
Oh, man. Ah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Gosh, I'm so moved. I really am. Um, I didn't want to make a course about fighting phone addiction, you know? I didn't, I'm a novelist. I'm a mom, as you said, I'm a novelist. I'm a creative person in the world, and I think creative people and sensitive people are actually, um, even more susceptible to phone addiction. And what happened to me is I used to get I used to play mobile games when I was really stressed. And I would break away. I would say, "Okay, enough with the games." And I would break away, and then my life would go on. And then over the course of normal life, things would just get stressful. And I would pick up my phone and I'd say, "Okay, I'm going to play games for 10 minutes." And I would do that for one day, and the next day would be 20 minutes, and the next day would be a half hour. And I could get up to like 4 or 5 hours a day of playing mobile games. And I'm a novelist. So my job is to make myself sit down at my desk and write. So I was giving hours and hours a day to my phone. And one fateful night, my husband was out of town. My daughter and I had this lovely day, and we had a very full day together, and we wrapped up around 8 p.m. And I came into my home office, which is where I am right now, and I sat in my chair and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna play games." And I played games from 8 p.m. till 1 or 2 a.m. So like 7 or 8 hours straight. And in between playing rounds of games, I would scroll social media as like a palate cleanser to keep going, to change it up. And in the morning, I picked up my phone before I even did anything, before I had coffee. I picked up my phone and I realized that I'd picked it up and I looked at it and I thought, I think this is doing damage to my brain. I think I'm getting brain damage. I think this is interfering with the way my brain works. And it was that lightning bolt of clarity. So the reason why I'm telling you this story is because your poem means so much to me because I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to stop my whole life and I've dedicated now a year and a half to this project because, um, okay, now part two of that fateful night. So the next day, I said to myself, okay,
Well,
that's it.
let me interrupt you, Amy, before you go on to part 2.
Yeah.
I want to know who you are. This is the first time we've met, despite numerous attempts. My fault. Okay. I would like you and the people who are watching and listening to this podcast to know
Yeah.
you a little bit more because I think you've touched on it that you're a writer, but you're an extremely talented person and you have been involved in a career of artistry of many kinds. So,
Yeah.
would you be comfortable before we go into that,
Sure.
telling me about Emmy Laybourne, where you grew up? Because I think that's interesting. I could see parallels with my life in just a few sentences that you shared with me about that. So, would you mind doing that?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually had a very interesting childhood. So my parents, Kit and Jerry Laybourne, um, were pioneers in the cable TV industry in America. So I grew up in Manhattan until I was 11, and then we lived in New Jersey. My dad was a TV producer, specializing in animation and children's TV, and then my mom got a job at Nickelodeon in their acquisitions department and worked her way up through every single department at Nickelodeon until she became the president of Nickelodeon. And
Wow.
yeah, and this is the late 70s, early 80s into the 90s. So she's the woman who now for American audiences, they'll know these shows a bit more than you will, but she found You Can't Do That on Television and which was a very influential show in the US where if anyone said, "I don't know, green slime would come raining down on them." This is we're in the '80s, Mark. This is
Yeah.
the '80s.
Proper
Um,
80s children's TV.
yeah, and so she and her amazing creative team found and made all of these wonderful shows that really encouraged kids to be themselves and not be perfect and be funny and weird and wild. And then she ushered in the first wave of um, really cool animation. So shows like Doug and Rugrats that sort of set the tone for a lot of change. And
Worldwide
when
successes as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. She made Nickelodeon into this huge household name,
Wow.
a phenomenon, and we got to make a lot of the programming in our house. So, like, I'm in several pieces of, early programming for Nickelodeon. I'm in something called a Pinwheel. I was on a absolutely terrible sketch show called Turkey TV, and we tested the stunts for Double Dare in our basement with
Wow.
me and Jeffrey Darby, the creator of the show, tested the stunts to see if they would work in my basement. So I had this wonderful childhood that was about, where the questions that were being asked in the house were all about creativity, what works, what doesn't work. We saw a lot of bad movies. My dad would take us to see B movies, and we would talk about how they worked. And when I became a young adult, I was really interested in writing and in comedy improvisation. So I went to college. I got a major in creative writing. And then I came out of school and I started doing comedy improv, and it was wonderful. And I was in this comedy scene on the Lower East Side of Manhattan during the early '90s. Was absolutely wild, and I was performing with and friends with and hanging out with Janine Garofalo and Zach Galifianakis and Randy and Jason Sklar and many, many,
Wow.
many others, all just making something in the morning and putting it on at night. That was the
How
feeling.
exciting. And
It was
that's
exciting.
the art involved in that, and the sort of I it's hard to speak about. I like the way you're talking about entertainment as a science almost, that
Mm.
your father treated you to understanding the science behind why things work, why things don't work, and I find that really interesting. But also, I think I was listening to a radio show recently, and they said not all actors can be comedians. In fact, very few can be, whereas most comedians can make good actors. And I think
True.
that's because you are built to be clever and reactive, and act on a pinhead, when things change. And what you're saying about that creation in the morning and the delivery in the evening, what an exciting thing to be doing in one of the most amazing cities in the world.
It was really exciting, and there was a lot of failure on stage too. We would get up and say sometimes it would not work. Whatever we tried to do was a
Yeah.
disaster, and that was fine. It was so low stakes. It didn't matter if you did something that was just god awful. It was gone
But
2 minutes later.
good
It was
comedy
gone.
is created through mistakes though, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and the room, like, I'm thinking of Luna Lounge, which was this back room at a dive bar filled with old couches, and young people would cram into this space so that all the chairs, all the couches were filled, and then people were cross-legged on the ground. And to get to the stage, you had to, like, try not to step on anyone to get up onto the stage. Mark Maron was the host, and they were wonderful days. And I think actually the to connect my childhood to my 20s and this feeling of creativity, I always had the sense in terms of television that it was better to be a creator than a consumer. And we can come back to this later when we talk about phones, but what's interesting I think for everyone who's really hooked on social media is that part of what's really fun about it is creating content. It's making a
Yeah,
little piece of television, right? If we think
yeah,
about it that way, making a
yeah,
video, making a reel, and then seeing how it does. I mean, that's a fun game. I'm going to
yeah,
make this content that's a montage of me and my friends at the beach and see how many likes it gets. And maybe it'll
yeah,
go viral. It's like there's a bit of a gambling aspect to it.
absolutely.
And it's funny because the creation aspect, I love. I applaud the creation aspect, but the consuming aspect is what's really doing damage to our brains. So anyway, we'll get into that later.
Well, it's
Um,
very interesting because you said that one of your loves is meeting people and learning about new people, and I am absolutely on board with that. That is my
mhm,
drug. That is why I
yeah,
do this. I get X number of hits. I might get a few hundred. I might not get many at all. And I did an interview with a guy not so long back about podcasting, and he on his podcast, and he asked me, "What would your advice be to people who are podcasting?" And for me, the only advice is do it as long as you enjoy it, because I'm not doing this to get loads of likes. I'm doing it to hopefully help some people out there, but also because I enjoy it. As soon as I stop enjoying it, I will stop doing it. And I think that goes alongside what you're saying. I think you're failing if you're doing it and you're not enjoying it. What's the point?
oh. Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I think so often, so many people with social media, they do enjoy it. They make a few posts, they're great, it's super fun. And then the teens especially and young people have this feeling of like, well, now I have to make something. I have to keep posting. I have to keep people up. I'm running this little magazine that is my Instagram profile, and I have to keep feeding it content.
Mm.
When you don't really, you don't have to keep feeding it. But I couldn't agree more. And I also think that the way you host this podcast, which is with so much heart and it's so calm and it's really very kind. I'm sorry.
I don't do
My
praise
goal was to
well.
see if I can make you blush. It's working.
I
I mean, you
always
have
look
the
like
red
I'm
light
blushing.
on. But there's so much kindness here. There is a true love of connection and talking to people, and we all need that. We need that in the world. So, I'm very happy to be here.
I imagine growing up in New York in the 70s and 80s was very different to growing up in New York. I mean, I've not been to New York, but if it's anything like London and those kind of places, the face of those places has changed in the last 20 years or 30 years beyond recognition. I would imagine it was a gritty, dirty, busy, unforgiving place, but full of heart all at the same time.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. You've got it right. And, um, on the one hand, we would go places and I would feel unsafe. You could go there were city streets that you could walk on where you were like, "Oh, I don't know." And I would be holding my mom's hand and really close to her leg. But on the other hand, my best friend I lived on floor 9, my best friend lived on 5, and we spent all day running up and down the back stairs to each other's apartments with a group of kids in the building, and we had the freedom we could go into any kid's house and just basically eat whatever they had in the house. And we'd like a little flock of birds, we'd go land somewhere else and eat whatever they had. And we were free to, we, my, Carrie, for the county in Ireland, would roller skate around the block. And the doorman would just keep tabs on us. So we would do a loop and he would say, hey, Noel. And then we would do another loop, hey, Noel. And we weren't watched. Nobody was watching us. That was the fun of being a kid in the 80s. We were
So
completely
can I
free.
ask you, because I don't know anybody who grew up in New York, and
Yeah.
it's such a televised thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I would imagine there's different types of growing up in New York. There will have been difficult places and less difficult. But so did you live in one of these classic New York apartments then? That's like the warehouse style apartment.
I lived on 90th and Riverside Drive, which is the Upper West Side. Now, at this point in time, that area is completely gentrified, but at the time that I lived there, 90th was about as high as many people felt they could go. Then the streets had a rougher feel above that point. But, I was not in their classic warehouse. That area is in Soho, the US version of Soho, which stands for South of Hudson Street. Um,
I did not know that.
this apartment would be more like trying to think of a movie reference of New York that you would know. But it was like a classic pre-war apartment building. We had a view of the Hudson
Did it
River.
look like Sesame Street?
No, it did not look like Sesame Street. Sesame Street and those brownstones, that's more what there are streets with brownstones like that, but the Sesame Street vibe is definitely a Brooklyn vibe.
Ah, right. Okay. Because the other one is the one that we can't really talk about. There was a particular show that rhymes with Crosby, and that was a very Sesame Street style
Oh, yeah,
appearance.
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, it's such a shame that shows with such fond memories get tainted,
Yeah,
by bad actors.
yeah, and I
But,
feel terrible for the actors that were involved in that because it's just been absolutely kicked to the dust now, hasn't it?
I do too. I do too.
And
It's
it was
very
so phenomenal at the time because of the positive racial, role models it created,
Yes.
in a difficult time, really, and in just out of real heavy racism, really.
Well, yes, and I mean, now we're taking a real this is gonna be a big jump in our conversation, but, I live in LA, I live in Hollywood, and I'm not in the entertainment industry, but my brother is, my all my friends are, and the industry is really struggling right now.
Mm.
We had a writer's strike, that lasted a long time, and now the economy is in such shambles, um, but what's interesting to me is I have trouble imagining the show that could repair American politics right now.
Yeah.
Things are so polarized here. Like Cosby the Crosby Show, um,
The Rhymes with Crosby show.
the one that rhymes with Crosby Show, um, it did so much. It was great. It was wonderful. Everybody loved it. It was just delightful. What would that show be now? America is
Yeah.
so polarized. You can't imagine a show having mass appeal. It's
The only thing
nuts.
I can think of is the likes of Sesame Street, because that was the other thing that was raceless, just to an extent. And I think also the Muppet Show, and they are bringing that back at the moment. But
They are bringing the
those are the
Muppet Show back.
kind
Oh
of
god,
things.
please let the Muppet Show heal
I
America.
know.
Please God.
How amazing would that be? The best show that ever existed on television that fixes the world. It would be awesome.
I mean, Miss Piggy, Kermie, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, come and save us,
Oh,
please. I love them
yeah.
so much.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but it's so exciting for me to hear the minutiae of a world that I've probably never going to experience, but certainly didn't experience.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things about New Yorkers that people don't understand who've just seen them on TV. And and you probably understand this because of the big city of London. When you live in such close quarters, you can't smile at everyone on the subway because it's too much information. It's just too much connection. But if you in the olden times, if you would stand on a corner in New York and like pull out a map, like a subway map to try to figure out where you were going, within 30 seconds, you'd have 3 people saying, "Okay, where are you going? I'm gonna help you. What are you trying to you're trying to get to Queens?
Yeah.
Alright, look, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna take the A to the 3, you're gonna transfer." Um, People are super friendly. They're actually super friendly in New York. It's just that you have to penetrate that veil that helps everyone function, right, while they're living on the street.
Unlike London, where people are not friendly, no matter what the veil is. But
Is that right?
unless they're foreign, then they're generally friendly. But um, I'm from the north of England, and in the north of
Yeah.
England, we're known for being friendly, and we are known for when you go into a shop, you have a chat with the shopkeeper and all of that kind of thing. And there are regular skits on the television, comedy skits saying, "A northerner has been spotted in London, traveling around, waving and saying hello to people. Please do not let your children out. Be aware that it's been spotted in this area." So it's kind of the same. But I think the only other thing I know that's perhaps more Long Island than New York, but it's Dirty Water hot dog. That's all I know.
Very nice. Hot dog. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Yeah, Dirty Water hot dog.
Don't you want a hot dog? Don't you want a hot dog? Hot dog? Yeah.
and
Sure.
and and Ghostbusters was so New York.
Ghostbusters was so New York. So that is more like the apartment I grew up in. Sigourney Weaver's
Okay,
apartment, I mean, not as nice as that, but that kind of a building was more like the one I grew
nice.
up in. Good. Well done.
That's
Well done. You
exciting.
did it. You
We
found
got
it.
there.
We got there. Got there.
Did your eggs used to jump out of the fridge and cook on the side?
Yes. That's definitely a New York thing. It's one of the great things about living in New York.
Everybody's place will be haunted in New York, and there'll be rats everywhere and all. Yeah,
Well, there are a lot of rats. I mean, you don't see them everywhere, but apparently there's like 4 rats for every person that lives in New York City.
I also find it really interesting, and you might be able to comment on this, how between the most sort of westerly point of New York, and then sorry, the most easterly point of New York and the westerly point of LA, how they are seen as the sort of more liberal areas, and there's everything in between, which is less so. You know, it interests me that those polars are the liberal, known liberal areas.
I know, it's interesting. I don't quite understand why the coasts are that way. Maybe it has something to do with roots of immigration, of actually those
Maybe
being places where people landed and brought wider ideas, and people are less afraid of difference and of immigrants, possibly? I don't
could be.
know.
So you sampled this world, this dynamic world, and when did you start to work then? What did work look like for you?
Yes. So what happened was, I I was doing improv. I was doing comedy really full time. And I had a little job that allowed me to make money. For a while, I was a production assistant at Comedy Central, which was great, and I met a lot of people, and I sort of got to understand some of how that world worked. And then I got enough acting work that I quit that job. I had a one woman show called Smorgasborn for my last name Laybourne, so it was Smorgasborn, and my manager, who was brilliant, Maureen Tarrant, got Lorne Michaels of Saturday Night Live to come and see my show, and that was my dream, was to get on Saturday Night Live.
I bet.
And, about 3 months later, I was cast in a movie called Superstar, which came out in 1999, and it's a Saturday Night Live movie with Molly Shannon and Will Ferrell, and I had a very big role. I played Molly Shannon's best friend, and it was a dream to shoot it. We shot in Toronto. I was 25, and it was just heaven. It was one of the most fun things I've ever gotten to do in my life. And
Wow.
coming out of that movie, I'd lived in New York up until that point, and my agents were like, "You need to be in LA, get there." So I moved to Los Angeles, and w in the space between, shooting that movie and having it come out, I met my husband, my now husband, and fell in love. And, am I leaving anything out? No. So now I'm in this one movie, right? Movie comes out, it's very successful. I get lots of auditions. Everybody wants to meet me, everybody wants to know me. I got cast in a sketch show, for TV that never made the air. I did 1 year on a sitcom, but all through that, I fell in love, got married, got pregnant, and once I got pregnant, I could not return to acting. I loved being pregnant so much, and as an actor, and many actors have a very, troubled relationship with their bodies, and for me, I had always felt I was too heavy. I'd always thought I would be more successful if I were thinner, and I was hard on myself, and I had a lot of rules about what I was allowed to eat and not eat and all of this stuff, and then I got pregnant, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can never be mad at my body again. Look at what it's doing. It's so beautiful." So,
So that was a
I
whirlwind.
yeah, yeah, it was a whirlwind. Yeah. My manager, who I mentioned before, Maureen Tarrant, who was just wonderful. Oh, I should say that I did audition for Saturday Night Live before I had kids, and, it was really amazing. When you audition for Saturday Night Live, you go to 30 Rock, you're in a dressing room. So I was in Anna Gasteyer's dressing room, and they try to make it as intense and difficult as they can to see if you're going to break, right?
So
If you if
not
it
unlike what you'd been doing in New York.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So except that this is an act, I have, 7 minutes prepared to do for Lorne Michaels on the set of Saturday Night Live, and I've been
Wow.
practicing it, and I have a box of wigs and props, and I am, like, ready. I mean, I'm, like, ready to go and do a great job, and I'm in Anna Gasteyer's dressing room, and they're knocking on the door, and they go, you know, "2 minutes, Miss Laybourne." 1 minute, Miss Laybourne. 30 seconds, Miss Laybourne. And then they come. I'm following this PA who's got a headset. we're going down the hallway. On the walls are Gilda Radner, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd. You're you're in the place. And then I walk out onto the set of Saturday Night Live. You stand where the host stands when they do the monologue. I mean, for American audiences, Saturday Night Live is like the holy grail. So they
Yeah.
have
Well,
3
it's
cameras.
America's comedy factory, isn't it?
Yeah,
That is your yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's like the Graham Norton show, it's
Yeah.
just
Well, it's
it is
bigger.
the show.
Because
Yeah,
it's bigger, I think, because it makes worldwide comedy stars. That
yeah,
you make it on there, you're it, aren't you? And
yeah.
whether you end up writing for a living or whether you end up doing comedy for a living, it's what produces that, isn't it?
It launches careers for sure.
Yeah.
So I stand there, the spotlights hit me, they've got 3 cameras on me, and Lorne Michaels and his one head writer are sitting at a table just 5 feet away. So I've met Lorne, I've talked to him, so I decide to pitch my audition to him instead of to the cameras, which I think was, in retrospect, I wish I'd done to the cameras.
Mm.
But I did it. I did a great job. And I walked out of there with my box of wigs and I was like, okay, that's as close to this dream as I can possibly get myself. It is out of my hands now. I've done my part. So
Yeah.
I did not get Saturday Night Live. That's clear, right? Because I've never been on it. But I have to tell you, Mark, that 6 months after I auditioned, I was on the street hailing a cab and I hear a voice from across the street saying, Emmy Laybourne, Emmy Laybourne. And I look over and it's Paula Pell, who's one of the head writers, and she waves me over. So I run across the street, ducking cabs, and she says, I just had to tell you, you were this close.
Oh, did you want to know?
I think in retrospect, it might be better not to know that. Like she
I,
was,
I think
she
I think 20 years on, it's okay to know that.
Yeah. 20 years later, with 2 beautiful children, with a
Yeah.
life that I would not trade for anything in the world, it's fine to know that I was this
Yeah.
close, but, well, that's my Saturday Night Live audition story.
And you were close enough for her to remember you, remember your name, call you over and tell
Yeah,
you, which is a kind thing to do. She didn't have to do that, did she? So
she did not have to do that, it was very kind of her. So anyway, I'm bouncing around in time, but, after that experience.
did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy that process? I mean, where is your measure of success at that age?
My well, now, at the age of 54, looking back on all of that, I could not be happier that I spent my 20s making comedy with a group of wonderful people. We had a scene. It
Yeah.
was a scene. And I think being part of a scene, being known and loved and walking in and having people like, "Oh my god, Emmy, you have to see this thing we just did. You're gonna this goes so
Yeah.
funny." Or, "Oh my god, Emmy, can you play a part in my sketch tonight? You're gonna be a waitress who comes in and falls." To be part of a scene, that is what I want for young people. I don't care what your interest is. Find
Yeah.
people who are doing something and do it with them. It's the best thing in the
I agree.
world.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Do you think you're able to appreciate it in your 20s?
Do you think was I able to appreciate it then?
Then, yeah.
Yeah, I knew even then that we were doing something really special. It was really
That's
fun.
really nice then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you're having fun, um, that's everybody knows when they're having fun. You know when your body and your mind get filled up with electricity for what you're doing and you just wanna be there and stay there and do it. And honestly, Mark, this is why I had to pick up this phone fight. This is why I this is a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take time away from creating to tell people about what their phones are taking from them. But my experience as a young creative person in my 20s is what is the secret of why I'm here.
That's what you don't want people to miss out on.
I don't want people to miss out on that. And so can I tell you a bit of brain science now?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So there's something called the default mode network in everybody's brain. And up until relatively recently, people, brain scientists, and people in science thought that when you weren't actively focusing on your brain on a problem, that your brain was just sort of just drifting around. But in studying it, they've realized that there are four areas of the brain that talk to each other, that come alive and talk to each other when you are not engaged in a specific activity. This is called the default mode network. And what the default mode network does is it sifts through the events of the recent, say, 24 hours, and it makes sense of them and sorts them away. And it's helpful in forming your identity and in problem solving. So the DMN, the default mode network, is the engine behind the great creative thoughts you have while you're washing the dishes, because you're washing the dishes. Your brain does not require to wash these dishes. And these four parts of your brain that don't usually talk to each other start firing up and sending messages. So problems that you have are suddenly solved in this creative, crazy way. It is the engine that drives your deepest, coolest thoughts. The problem with phones is that number one, whenever you're bored, when you're waiting online, when you're on a bus, when you are, I mean, in the shower. I even know a woman who was bringing her phone with her into the shower to watch YouTube videos. You are you are hijacking the time that your default mode network usually gets. So
Mm.
you're taking away time that your brain uses to process and to have its best ideas. Okay. That's the first way that it messes with your DMN, your default mode network. The second way that phones are messing with it is that the default mode network is taking all of the things in your life that are troublesome, that have been giving you pause, that require you to think about, and it's sorting them out. Well, if you watch social media or you scroll the news too much, you're dumping more content into your default mode network that your brain now has to try to figure out, because brains are obviously very smart, but they're not that good at telling what's real from what's fake. So the real argument you had with your uncle about politics is getting lumped in with frightening videos you're seeing of war-torn regions, with people yelling about politics on a video, with ads for jeans, with cute dogs. All this stuff is just it's getting thrown into this big sieve in your brain, and your brain it can't get to the bottom of all this content. So for young people, especially for teenagers and 20-year-olds, you get your best ideas when you're in your 20s. That's when you're at your most creative. That's when these scenes are the most exciting, because all these young people are coming together and they're innovating like crazy. So when you have social media and you're consuming that much of it, your your brain doesn't get to produce its most creative ideas. And that honestly, that when once I heard about the default mode network and I realized what social media is doing to creativity, that's when I thought, okay, let me put aside my work and try to get this message out.
It's really interesting because before Christmas, I interviewed a chap about caffeine, and he's on a similar
Mm,
uh, crusade. Is wrong because but I am going to come to that.
yeah.
Crusade is the word I'm going to use to educate people about the damage that caffeine does to people. And I
Wow.
think it's not dissimilar to what you're talking about, how um, it blocks certain receptors within the brain because they fit. I can't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
it blocks certain parts of the way we build. It's almost like building up the right stimuli during the day in order to sleep well at night. So not only does it act as a stimulant, but it also blocks the ability to sleep properly in a certain way. So caffeine
Mm,
after midday is really bad and toxic, and I think actually a combination of caffeine and phones is probably really bad. But what I was going to say was, it, it there's two things actually. One is I've never heard of the term that you're using. Can you
yeah.
say it again, please?
It's the default mode network.
The default mode network. Let me write that
Yeah.
down so I don't forget to
Nobody's
use it
ever heard of
again.
it. I hadn't heard of it before I started researching this.
But what I did in my book, not because I am a psychologist or anything, I wrote a section about boredom, um,
Mm,
because I think the value of boredom is colossal, and
mhm.
actually, what I say is that I don't remember being bored as a kid. um, because that was when I did my best imagining. That was when I imagined what I was going to do for a job when I was older. It
Yep,
was when I designed the amazing floating plug that when the bath filled up, the plug would pop out. And but actually, it's already been invented. But I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread.
that's
And
genius.
you know, you think about going on a spaceship and actually what will Mars look like, and uh, if you were to zoom into a stone far enough and far enough enough far enough, what does it look like? And all of
Mhm.
those things. But that was where my brain went when my parents were in the supermarket and I was sat in the car waiting for them. And
Yeah,
and all of that has been stolen
it
from
has
children
been.
and from young people and from adults.
Yes, yes, and it's an experiment that's been enacted on the minds of children and the minds of
Yeah,
teenagers, and we all were totally eager to sign up for it because phones are so convenient and they help. We just signed up and they're fun. So what could be the harm of this? It's really gonna be like cigarettes. You know, when cigarettes were first so popular, they were touted as being good for your health. And
yeah,
then they realized that they're terrible for your health. They cause cancer. They're gonna find out, they are finding out that phones and that technology in the classroom is very bad for kids. It's bad for their learning, it's bad for their brain development. But again, we talked about this at the beginning. Shame has no part in this conversation. It is not the fault of a parent watching this program who might think, oh my God, I gave my kid an iPad when they were 4. They watch hours of content a day. Now they're on their phone. They have social media. I'm a bad parent. I should set more limits with screen time. Stop. No shame. We did not know how addictive this stuff was until now. They're new. They're brand new. It's nobody's fault if you or your child is addicted to a phone. It's not your fault. But now that you know, it is your fight. It is our fight now, which is why I call my website Fight Your Phone. And I'm not doing it quite yet, but I'm going to write a book and I'm thinking about calling it Fight Your Effing Phone
yeah.
because we need to have the energy of, I am going to rebel. This is a counterculture thing to do. We have to fight back because what's happened is really not okay. It's not
Mm.
okay. And even though everyone is doing it, you can't go to a restaurant without seeing 10 people on their phones, even though everyone is doing it. So you have to get into a counterculture mindset of being a rebel and being like, yeah, I know. It is socially appropriate for me in the middle of this conversation to say, wait a second. Okay, what were you saying? I mean, that's socially acceptable when I mean, it's honestly, it's pretty rude if you think about it, but
Well, it's not far off saying talk to the hand while I do something and then carry on. You know, it really isn't.
talk to the
It,
hand. You'd never do that
yeah,
to somebody.
of
Yeah.
course you wouldn't.
No, you never would. You never would.
I and I think the other side to what you were saying is another thing that I've looked at a little bit is when you're looking at things, when you are experiencing, as you say, stressful things which are imaginary or real, as long as you're exposed to them, you still release the same stress hormones and the like.
Yes.
Stress hormones are fight or flight hormones. They pump your body with you know the ability to run away or to escape or to panic. And stress hormones are the only thing that can cause fat around your waist and your stomach.
Yeah.
And there you go. That instantly is a difficulty, because not only are the I spoke to a guy recently, and he mentioned that over the last 10 to 100,000 years that humans have been developing, we've had two generations, maybe three, where people have stopped playing out and children have stopped doing that because we've deemed it to be more dangerous now than it ever was for the past 100,000 years. Now, clearly that's wrong and that's not correct, but we're in that hole now, and it's very difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. And that's equally been replaced with, so kids are not going out playing, running around and climbing and fighting and all of those things. So they lose the awareness of self. So you and I learned to fall out of a tree, or in your case, fall off your roller skates. How to fall, how to do it in such a way that you won't hurt yourself quite as badly next time.
Yeah.
And kids are not exposed to that, so your risk assessment abilities are reduced. But then you are exposing yourself to the same things that would cause the risk. So you're only getting the negative chemicals that are coming from that, and the inability to actually manage the scenario. So you're exposed to the stress, but you don't get to respond. You don't get to say, this is how I'm going to deal with it to avoid getting thumped, or to avoid, and it's like orders of magnitude problematic.
Yeah. It is. It is orders of magnitude problematic. It is really problematic. And I love what you just said. You're so right about the stress hormones. And you know what the best way to work off those stress hormones is? It's to walk around the block. It's to
Yeah.
get up, but when someone is in a doom spiral, right, and they're doom scrolling, you see something that's upsetting, and this is all subconscious, but you see an upsetting video, an upsetting reel, and so you swipe to the next, hoping to regulate your emotion with some content that's gonna make you feel uplifted again, that's gonna give you the courage to live again. But really what your brain needs is some movement. It needs
Mm,
some action. Action is the
mm.
best antidote for despair, for fear. Creativity is the antidote for anxiety. And so when you're feeling really anxious, this is what I keep saying to my friends here in the US, because we are in very frightening times here in the US. I mean, this podcast will be released at a later date, but here, right now, right here, there's still a lot of drama between ICE and the Minnesotans. And it's a very frightening time here. We are really frightened here. And I keep telling people, make some art. know it sounds counterintuitive. Do protest, call your lawmakers, get out and do a march, but make some art, make something, whatever you can create. Do some baking, write a letter to your friend, do some painting, even if you're terrible at it. Do something that's creative for you. Make a wonderful meal. Groom your dog, and whatever it is that do an action that brings some hope into the world.
I went on an extremely deep diving training course about 6 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, and it was intended for leaders in the community, but it was also, um, it was about inclusivity to some extent, although it
Mm,
wasn't very obviously about inclusivity. And we spoke just at the beginning of this talk, perhaps before we press record, and that was where one of the places where I was taught to listen better and to
mm,
listen more.
mm,
Um, and when we were there, one of the activities, you sort of arrived in the morning. It was a 3 or 4 day course. You arrived in the morning, and you were taken off to different destinations with people. There was quite a few people from my employer there, but there was 30 or 40 people on the course, and again, they become very close, a bit like your group, only over 3 days. Um, and when we arrived, if you were there first, you had the pick of the bunch of all the different opportunities you could go to. Or you could go to like a
Hmm.
women's refuge and speak to the people who ran that. You could go to a solicitor's. You could go to the local sort of there's a national function place. It was near Birmingham, so it's called the NEC, where they put on lots of shows and business get-togethers and things like that. You go to that and speak to the organisers of that. So lots of different sort of industries and styles and things to go and see.
Hmm.
And one day we arrived as a group a little bit late, and the only option available to one of the people that was with me was an arts and an art based children's development group, and
Hmm.
this person who was with me had absolutely written that off. And to be fair, my tolerance of um, art, or the arts, I should say, as a valuable asset then was probably not what it is now. I'm far more open minded to that, and I think it has such a great value, and I've learned a lot about it. But this person was absolutely, what a waste of time. So she went on this thing, and came back, had everybody's telephone numbers, was going to come back to where we work and instigate all of the things that she saw,
Wow.
literally from one session, because she saw the value of how these people were able to invest themselves into it and bring other people in, and be submerged in warm water of the arts. And
She had
the
probably
reason
got
the
to do some art, didn't she? Did she get to
y-
paint or
yeah,
draw?
yeah, I think so. And she certainly
So she
saw the
felt
value
it.
of the people doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and the reason I'm saying this is because what I've learned is, because I'm not very artistic, but I am creative, and I've found ways to use creativity, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons is a great
Yes.
way of having creativity, which is alternative creativity, where you have to think on the spot, you have to problem solve, you may even do the painting of the actual miniatures that you get involved, and the value of that to me on a regular basis is colossal. And my the reason I'm saying this now on the back of what you're saying is, it doesn't have to be painting, it doesn't have to be baking, it doesn't have
Yes.
there's all sorts of outlets, but the value of them from a mindfulness point of view, and that's what boredom has been reframed into, if you ask me. We call mindfulness now, it used to be boredom. um, and now everybody's after it, and then nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
And
That's hilarious.
um, but the you know that outlet can be baking. It can be. It doesn't. It can be woodwork. It can be. It can be cleaning the gutters.
Mark,
It doesn't have
you're
to
you're
be.
leading you're leading right into the second most important thing to know about phone addiction
Please take it away.
is
Take it away.
that is that phones, there's something called opportunity cost, right? And with phones, whatever time you're spending on your phone is time that's being taken away from something else, right? All this time, I was spending 5 hours a day on my phone playing video games. That time had to come from something, right? So they also refer to this as the displacement hypothesis. So time you spend on your phone is displacing time you would normally spend doing something else. So those 5 hours that I spent on my phone, they were displacing, I would say, I'm imagining this, but I would say they were displacing three things. Number one, going to the gym, right? I did not exercise. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy moving my body. My body was pretty painful. Yeah. And I see
I
you.
put my hand up there for the
Yeah.
people who are listening. I put my hand up there because I'm there now.
I'm still there, but I never, you know, that those 5 hours would come from my hobbies, which I love to read. I'm an avid reader. I
Mm.
love reading books. Fantasy is my favorite genre, but I read everything. So I was missing out on reading, I was missing out on moving my body, and I was missing out on spending quality time with friends, family, and pets, right? I have 2 great dogs. I wasn't brushing my dogs, I wasn't taking them for a walk. I was busy, stuck in this loop of trying to make myself feel better on a device that is not designed to make you feel better. It's designed to keep your eyeballs on it. It's
Mm,
designed to keep you looking at it. And so, you've really hit it. Creativity, doing something that is, essential, that we get back to that. That's the first step in taking your life back from your phone, is to say, "Okay, just make a list. What are the 5 things I used to love to do as a child?" I loved it when you were talking before about, like, daydreaming, imagining what a rock looks like up close. What would it be like on Mars? The time when I was a child, I loved to ride my bike. I had a bike. So we lived in Manhattan, as you know, but my parents also bought a bungalow colony with a bunch of their artist friends. So out of the city in the Catskill Mountains of New York, they bought it. Each family had to put in $2,000 to have a
wow.
broken down one bedroom bungalow on 30 acres of forest. And I would ride my bike up and down this dirt road. My bike was an orange banana seat m bike that I called Pegathon because I thought that's what you called Pegasus. I thought Pegasus was called Pegathon. So I would ride Pegathon all day long. That's all I did. I just rode my bike, and then I would collect newts in the forest. Red efts, the little salamanders. So as a child, I loved to be in nature and ride my bike. And I would offer, not challenge. Let me take that back. I would offer to your viewers, if you do nothing to fight your phone, if you're not interested in fighting your phone, and in fact you think this is a bunch of hogwash, just make a list of 3 to 5 activities you love to do as a child and just try to do them more. Just try to do them more. That's a great first step to take.
You would love my book, Emmy, because it's full of this stuff.
I can't wait to read it. I'm gonna absolutely order it. Um, I I'll get it through an indie bookstore right here in the US. I can't wait.
Yeah, but I think you're right, and one of the reasons I love your story from your childhood in the apartments is when I moved into my mum's home now. It's in a little. Do you know what a close is? Is that a British thing? A close is where it's like a street, but it just ends. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
have a closed end
Uh-huh.
street.
Great.
Yeah. So it's like the end of a finger, if it were.
Like a cul-de-sac
So
is what we call it here, a cul.
cul-de-sac is it's a cul-de-sac. Yeah, yeah. So a close or a cul-de-sac, and we we lived at the bottom of this cul-de-sac, and there was
Oh, great.
loads of kids who lived down there. So it was very safe to play because it wasn't near a busy road, and it was almost
Yes.
like having your own park out front of the house. And when I moved there, I was 2 or 3 years old, and I went next door and I spoke to the little girl who lived next door, Alison, who I don't know if she listens to this podcast, but I'm still in touch with Alison. I love her to pieces. But everybody thought locally we were brother and sister because we were just together all the time. We played out all of the time. We both had older brothers and sisters that were of a similar age, and they did their thing, and we did our thing. But we were forever. Apparently, my mum always recalls the story that people would watch us going to school because we walked to school together, both blonde hair,
Hmm.
um, both like she was a few 10 months or so older than me, but she was in the year above me at school. But we'd walk together and we'd sort of trundle along, and apparently we'd people down the street would see us stop, and we'd look at like a dead frog and poke it with a stick, or we'd find a blocked drain, or we'd kick a puddle at each other or something like that. And then
This
we'd realize we were running behind, so we'd run off for a bit, and then we'd find something else. And it was a bit
uh,
like a shunting train on the way to school. But those are the I mean, even down to if I understand the biology of a frog or of the way a bone works because I poked a frog with a stick, because if you poked a certain area, the arm would, the leg or something would extend. And it sounds really
Yeah,
basic and silly, but I remember that. And I was learning biology and science through just inquisitiveness, but you just walk along with a phone in your hand now.
it's so true,
And
and those kids are it's not 100% this way, but it's possible that they're being driven to school or they're on a
yeah,
school bus and they have a device in hand.
yeah,
So, I think what's wonderful is there really is a growing movement around the world. In many schools, lots of people are talking about giving kids a phone-free childhood. Lots of people are talking about no phones till they're 16
yeah,
and no social media till they're 16. And
yeah.
I hope that gets pushed back to 18, but just really wonderful communities. Our kids went to a Waldorf school, and Waldorf schools they were way ahead of the curve on this because they've always been no media. They're media free. You're really not supposed to have your kid watching TV or movies if they're in a Waldorf school. So phones, like, yeah, nobody had a phone. It was great. And my son spent his childhood days um, riding bikes in his friend's driveway, and they would make all these ramps out of broken down pieces of plywood. And, that really is what kids need. They
Yeah.
really do need to be messing around unsupervised in nature or as close to nature as you can get them.
The only thing I am going to put in, which could be controversial to you, but I don't think it will be. Um, when I used to have a business where I would teach bushcraft, so I'd take people into the woods and teach them to light fires and build shelters and cook
Oh
over an
my
open
God.
fire and those kind of things.
That
And
is
I did.
completely my jam. As we say in the States.
Well,
I love that kinda stuff.
I loved it.
I'm
I loved
interrupting you
it.
to just say, I've written 6 young adult novels, and out of the 6, 5 of them have elements of, like, surviving in the world. So, I'm here.
Excellent.
Yes, go ahead.
And if I ever come to America, my ultimate dream in America is to go to like Death Valley and sit around a campfire with some proper cowboy sort of beans and sleep on a mat around a fire, like Blazing Saddles style, because that's like the, the ultimate sort of the
That can be
American
arranged,
experience.
Mark. That can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
arranged.
that's what I want to do.
You can spend a couple nights here in LA with me and my husband, and then we'll drive you out into the desert, and we'll leave you, and you can have your cowboy dreams come true.
That sounds great. And I did some
Yes.
work with some children with learning difficulties. They actually had memory problems, so they'd
Mm,
had meningitis as young people,
mm.
and it can have an effect on them where they entirely lose their ability to remember, and they have to put different elements into their day to help them remember things. And just a bit of a side note, what was really amazing about this was the different senses that you have, the five senses that we have. Oftentimes they would find that elements of the brain that control, say, touch or smell or sight would physically grow
Mm.
following these brain injuries in order to try and find a different way to plug in the memories. Because, I mean, how amazing is that?
It's so
So, but
amazing. It's so
that is
amazing.
amazing.
It's
But
really
that's
is.
not what I was going to tell you. One of the people on the because it was for TV that I did it, and one of the things that we did, there was a child that they just would not go in the woods. They would not go in the woods. They wanted to stay at the house where they were staying and play on the game machine. And I said, "Well, how can we get him in?" And well, they won't. He won't come in. He wants to be on his phone. I said, "Well, tell him to come in the woods. Bring his phone. I don't mind. If it means we get him into the woods, then we've got some chance of him not being on his phone in the woods and enjoying the woods. But if we don't allow him to bring his phone, and that's the deal breaker, we'll
Yeah.
never get him in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Bring it.
that's the transition that I think, because I think it's hard to go to the woods or on a country walk or by the sea or whatever it is, if everybody else isn't on their phone or most people are not on their phone and you're the only one, people will start to say, "Oh, look at that," or "What's that over there?" or "Have you seen this?" 9 times out of 10, it's like when you take your kids to a meal and they say that I don't eat broccoli and all the other kids are eating broccoli, all of a sudden your kid eats broccoli. So I think that's perhaps a way to encourage people to push the boundaries of that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I think that's a great idea, and tell me, how did it work with that child? Did he put the
Great.
device
They
down?
came. Yeah, no, well, he had it with him all the time, and I think it became a security blanket. And in the first instance, it was almost like obstinance. He wasn't going to look. He didn't want to look because he was on his phone. And then, exactly what I've described,
Yeah,
there were things like we started to eat some plants that we found, and he wasn't on board with that. But he was on board with saying, "Oh, that's disgusting." But that took
right.
his eye away from the phone. And
Yeah. Yeah.
those are the things that you can choose for it to be discussing. You don't have to have it, but you took part in the conversation, and that was a step further than we would have been if you were sat back at home.
I think you're a very wise teacher. You know, some kids you can come at straight on, and some kids you need to come sideways. You need to come to them where they are and walk with them a while and be right with them where they are. And that's what you did in that moment. I think that was very
Well,
smart.
do you like being told to do things that you don't want to do?
No, I
I
don't.
don't.
Nobody
Uh,
does.
so
Nobody does.
uh, if anybody says to me, "Well, we're going to do that. You're going to do it, and you're going to do it this way," I'll say, "No, no. I'll see you
Yeah.
later." But if we said, "Well, okay, why don't you come, but bring that," I might be more likely to do it. It's not rocket science, is it?
It, no, it's how it's the human psyche. It's how we're programmed to be. And on all of this, I would say, as in terms of your phone and fighting your phone, um, again, it's really easy to feel a lot of shame and guilt about this. Everybody thinks they're on their phone too much. We're all sort of aware of it. Like, oh, I know I'm on my phone. Oh, put down my phone. I know. But so if you start to think of it as I'm going to be a countercultural rebel who is going to go against what the big tech wants me to do. Screw you. I'm not going to be on my phone. Screw you. I'm going to put it down when I'm at dinner with my friends. Screw you. I'm leaving it at home. Nobody's going to be able to reach me for an hour. You know, like get that attitude. Have a feeling of like, what could you do to give the middle finger to your phone? What could you do to push back against addictive tech? Because man, they are really working hard to keep you on your phone. And that's the rebellion I wanna tap into, is you're fighting TikTok, Instagram, uh, all of these apps, they want my eyeballs so bad. Man, anytime I look at Instagram, first of all, I always buy something, and second of all, you know, everyone I look at makes money from me looking at their content. Everyone
Yeah.
I follow makes money from me following them. Like, it's just we're all being played. You're being used, and it makes me angry, and I want it to make other people angry. And, you know, even if you're not angry for yourself, even if you're like, "You know what? I'm a grown up. I'm gonna spend 3 hours a day on social media. I don't care. It's fine. It's my brain. I'm in control." That's fine. But I hope people will get angry for the children because that inspecting a frog with a stick, you know, that joy of daydreaming, that freedom to wander around, that's being hijacked by these apps. And it's really not fair for children. Their brain development is being really messed with by these apps,
Yeah.
and it is simply not fair. They deserve a phone free existence so that their brain can develop as human brains have developed since we've been walking on two legs.
I'm not gonna tell you that I don't doom scroll, and I'm not gonna tell
Yeah.
you that I don't go on my phone because I
Yeah,
do.
I do too.
But I do have some rules, and this is another thing that perhaps has helped me not be glued to my phone, and I thoroughly enjoy when and it's become less possible now, but when I go on holiday, we like to go to Egypt because we like to go scuba diving. Um, and I love going to I used to love going to Egypt because you could not get Wi-Fi outside
Mm,
around the pool. The hotel
yeah.
Wi-Fi was always appalling. So I'd end up leaving my phone in the safe until the evening where you could go to the reception. You had maybe half an hour on your phone, and then I liked those boundaries, and I loved it when I came back because I was weaned off it a little bit. But
Mm,
one of the rules that I've set myself is I try not to do politics on my phone, and I try not to do anything negative. So I only share things that are light-hearted or positive, or and, those kind of things. And the other rule that I've tried to have, because I love music, and most people do, I try not to walk the dog with headphones in,
mm,
because not because I think that is being glued to your phone, but I do think there is a link and a reliance. It's almost like a comfort blanket. But the reason I do it is because I try to get a little bit more in tune with hearing the birds, hearing
mm.
the dog, hearing the cars, hear, listening to the wind in the trees, noticing the weather, noticing the texture of the trees you're walking past, smelling the smells. There's a takeaway not far away that often blows along the road where I walk the dog, and then sometimes you can just smell lovely greenery, and hear there's a little sort of brook where you can hear the water in it. But I would miss all of that if I didn't if I had headphones in. And while sometimes I do listen to music or an audiobook, I try to make sure that I try not to when I walk the dog. And again, it's little boundaries, but I stopped drinking about a year and a half ago. And this year I'm going abroad for the first time since I stopped drinking. And I love to have a beer around the pool when I'm
Yeah.
when I'm abroad. And this year is the first year that I may not do that. But even that, I've started to think, well, because what I'm trying to do is start at the end. What do you gain from doing what you do with your phone? How can you still gain that but do less scrolling? And I wonder if by concentrating, like, only doing the positive things, you'll soon run out of those, or only doing the non-political things. At least you're streamlining. I don't know if that's a good thing, but the drinking thing, I'm thinking maybe I will have a beer around the pool on holiday, and that's the only place I will drink because I'm not an alcoholic. I choose not to drink, but maybe that will be the place. But by building in those rules, it will limit me to, well, I've finished my holiday now. I'm not drinking anymore. I'll drink at the next holiday. And I wonder if you could do something similar with building islands for the use of your phone in order for it not to take over. You rule it rather than it rules you.
Absolutely. You absolutely can, and I think it's a great idea for everyone to examine the boundaries they have with their phone and just, um, tighten up a bit, make the boundaries more concrete. We've had such a wonderful, wide-ranging discussion, and I don't know if I have finished this sort of story of what happened to me after I hit rock
Yeah, please.
bottom.
I'd like that.
Because I think it applies to the question you're asking now, because what I
I don't
wanna
even
give
think we've got to what rock bottom was. How did you get there?
I got there by playing these games that I was so addicted to for, like, 8 hours one at one time, and really that's a neurological condition of having stripped out the dopamine and the serotonin in my brain by repeatedly playing games, so that I was like trying to get blood from a stone, or like think of
Yeah.
a sponge. I just had squeezed all the feel good chemicals out of my brain. There were none left, which is probably how you feel the day after you've done some incredible drug that I've never done, like
Yeah.
heroin or,
That's exactly. I was thinking heroin, the same
yeah.
thing. And.
Um, so So I have two paths to talk about with for you and everyone who listens and watches this program. The one path is a reasonable one with some boundaries that you can set. Let's talk about that in a minute, okay? What I want to tell you about is the completely unreasonable path that I took on this morning when I woke up and was worried that I'd done brain damage. So I sat down and read a book called Dopamine Nation that I had started reading, but I'd stopped because I knew that if I kept reading it, I was going to have to change. and I wasn't ready to change. But on this day, I was ready to change. So I read Dopamine Nation. I read a whole bunch of other books that I had on my shelves about habit formation. And I decided to create my own 30-day abstinence program. This was on March 30th, 2024. So I decided I would call it Analog April. And for the whole month of April 2024, I would not play a single game. I would not look at a game. I would not go on social media. I would not look at social media. And that was and I put a lock on it, a hard seal. And then, because I knew that was gonna be hard, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna journal every day. I'm gonna meditate, not every day, but I'm gonna meditate a lot. I'm gonna journal every day. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna call my friends. I'm gonna schedule tons of fun stuff with my friends because I'm gonna be feeling sorry for myself and I'm gonna be lonely. So I'm gonna schedule to do fun things." And what else did I have? I think that was it. I think those were my guidelines for myself. So and with all of this, just like massive amount of momentum because it had just happened, I was like in it. And so for Analog April 2024, it was such a success. You cannot imagine. I left it feeling 10 years younger and I felt gleeful. I'd be like, I mean, there were hard days. The first week of detox was really intense. And on day 4, you feel like trash. I mean, my brain was crying out for my phone. And what I did instead was I took a cold plunge, which was a technique I read about in Dopamine Nation. When you take a cold plunge, it rebalances the pain pleasure levers in your brain, and it completely worked. Um, so so I do think for people who really have a problem that doing a month-long abstinence from their phone, from the apps that are addictive is really helpful. I still used my phone to schedule for as a calendar, as a, for Google Maps. I used it all day long, but I would not look at Instagram or a game. And in fact, I had a plane flight during that time where someone next to me was playing Candy Crush, and I was like this. I had to stay like this
Really?
because I would not look at that screen. I knew that screen would draw me in, so I just, I was like this. Um, Now that's the road. So, uh, I took that experience and I made an online course to lead people through it, and I call it the 5-week phone fight. And, you know, if if anyone really wants to try to break away from an addiction, I recommend checking it out. Now, and we should have some kind of coupon for people who watch this show to give them like some
That
discount.
would be great.
Everybody, 50% off the course for the pie eating man will be our discount, something like that. We'll put
You
it in.
heard it here first.
You heard it here first. The other route, okay, there's a more for people who want to just set some nice, easy boundaries. I have something else. Okay, it's called the BNT. It's like a BLT, except it's about phone hygiene, and sadly, it has no bacon. So B.
But thankfully, it has no mayonnaise because I hate that stuff.
Oh, I love mayonnaise. I'm sorry. Now,
Ugh,
now we found the one thing we don't agree on.
filth.
Oh, I tell you, my husband makes the best BLT in the world. So
Well, if it's mayonnaise in it, I don't believe you.
if you come to do your cowboy adventure, I'll have him leave off the mayo for you. It'll still be good. It'll still be good.
Well done.
So the BNT, B stands for bedroom. Do not bring your phone into your bedroom with you. Okay. There's 2 reasons for this. Everybody kind of knows about the blue light thing, that your phone emits blue light that really messes with your melatonin in the hour before bedtime. But there's a second reason. It's called psychological hypervigilance. And that is, if you examine those words, it's that when your phone is near you, there's a part of your brain that's paying attention to it, whether you're awake or asleep. So subconsciously, when you're asleep, there's a part of your brain that's still monitoring your phone for a call, a text, something important. Now, people say to me, well, I have elderly relatives or I have kids. I suggest then that you invest in a landline telephone. They're not that expensive. They run on your internet, right? They it might cost like $7 a month, if even. So get an old-fashioned landline and only give the numbers to your elderly relatives and your kids, so you know it's only gonna ring if
If
they're
that's not
needed.
possible, you could just get an old-fashioned style mobile phone that has no smartness to it.
Totally, 100%. Get an alarm clock. People also use their phones
Yeah.
for alarm clocks. Just whatever you have to do in your bedroom to make it a phone-free zone, do it, and charge that phone by the front door or the kitchen or in the bathroom, somewhere else. So that's one. B stands for bedroom. N, the N in our BNT stands for notifications. So it is usually possible to remove all notifications from your phone. Notifications they absolutely destroy your attention span, and they keep you attuned to your phone. They make you want it and to look at it, and it interrupts your concentration. So the ironic thing is that most people, myself included, naturally look at our phones so many times a day that you don't need to be notified about messages because you're looking at your phone every hour on the hour, at least once an hour, probably like 5 times an hour. You can take all the notifications off. And sound notifications are the worst. So just go to your settings and remove all notifications if you can. If you have to leave the ones from your bank that say you've overdrawn your account, or uh, a calendar that says it's time to leave for the airport, okay, you can have those. Otherwise, remove notifications. The last thing, the T in the BNT, is table. Do not bring your
I
phone
thought it
to
was gonna be toilet.
I actually, okay, in in if you're in a restaurant and you need to check your phone, I would prefer for you to leave the table and go to the toilet and check your phone in the
Ah, okay.
bathroom. That is the polite thing to do. I'm trying to popularize a quote. It is this: checking your phone is like cutting your toenails. Best done in private and never at the dinner table. Okay.
Excellent. I
I
like
want
that.
checking your phone to be something that you're kind of embarrassed. You're like, "Ooh, would you all excuse me? I need to check my phone. Pardon me, I know this is rude, but I need to check my phone." And then you leave and go check your phone somewhere else.
I think that's what we'll put on the thumbnail of this podcast. Checking your phone is like cutting your toenails. I think that if that's what the algorithm likes, I think we'll do that.
Awesome. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make this quote really popular, and I want it to be attributed to me, eventually in time, in history. But it is like that. It's like cutting your toenails. You should be like, "Ugh, I gotta check my phone. I'm really sorry. Oh, this is so embarrassing." Um,
It used to be like that for a little while. It was something that when you're at the table, you would say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and it doesn't seem to be anymore.
no, I think that it's gotten on the table. There are two ways that I see people using it on the table. One is they want to play music. So, like my husband who
Mm.
loves to cook he likes to make themed dinners. So he will literally make like a North African dinner and then he wants to play North African music to go with the North African dinner. So, but
Sounds
that's
like my kind of
fine, but
guy.
not at the table. Play your music and put your phone down on the side table. And the other thing that people do, and I find that baby boomers do this quite a bit, is they want to fact check what people are saying, or they want to my mother, who is the best person in the world, but she's very, very guilty of this. She'll say, "Oh, yes. Oh, this reminds me of this wonderful art exhibit I saw. What was that guy's name? What was that art exhibit? Who do I know who works at that company?" And it's like, it's really just an excuse to pull out the phone. So,
Mm.
so no fact checking, no music playing, just leave your phone in the other room if you can when you're having dinner. That's the BNT.
I do think it should be BTNT. I think toilet should be in there as well.
BTNT. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty gross. I mean, everyone I know brings the phone into the toilet. Everyone I know.
Yeah. It's got to be the most unhygienic thing you could
It's really
then you
gross.
then carry it round. It's
I
just
know, and it's
awful.
right on your face.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna change my habits starting right now. You just did it right
Yeah,
here. You saw it, everyone, right here on this show. No more phone in the
yeah,
bathroom for me.
BT&T.
BTFD.
Do you think, 'cause I often think about the when we used to have landlines as well. I knew everybody's number off by heart. Nobody remembers anything like that anymore. I often wonder if our ability to remember, like, long numbers and stuff is inhibited now because we have them all written down in a phone.
It it is. This, I think, enters an interesting part of the research that's going on about phones and about knowledge and about how people's brains develop because, our society and the things that we need to remember have changed so much with the phone and with computers. I'm sure when you went to school, there was a fair amount of memorization that was supposed to occur. I certainly was supposed to memorize lots of things, and honestly, I
Mm,
didn't. You know, I went to many different schools. We bounced around a lot when I was a kid from New York. I was in 3 different schools in New York City. Then we went to New Jersey. I was in 3 different schools in New Jersey. So just from grade 1 to 8, I was in 6 different schools. So it was nuts. I guess it's from kindergarten. Kindergarten to 8, I was in 6 different schools. So,
that must be difficult for a kid. I know it's not
oh,
really what we're here to talk about, but that must be
oh,
hard
no,
for
no.
you making friends and things.
Thank you. It was not easy. The friend part was really interesting going from Manhattan where everyone of every race was absolutely friends, and
Mm,
I understand why it is inappropriate and in fact not helping the move out of racism to say I don't see color. You know, that phrase is not actually helpful because everybody does see color and we need to celebrate
mm,
color and figure it out. But as a child, growing up in a public school in Manhattan, public means private, I think, in the UK and
yeah,
England. We have it switched. So in a school that was free for everyone to attend in Manhattan, the class was equally divided between white kids, Latino kids, and black kids, thirds. And there was no idea that you would ever distinguish anyone on race. It was not a
mm,
concept that any of us had, none of us. Well,
mm,
maybe that was the white perspective, but my best friends were black and Latina, period. And then I got to New Jersey, which was a suburb where it was very, very segregated. And
mm,
I had been mostly friends with the black kids in Manhattan, and suddenly that was not it was communicated to me by teachers, by adults in the community, that really wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And it was awful. So
mm.
we were not this was not anywhere near what we were going to talk about, but it was the other problem that I had was that my knowledge, the teaching that I received is super spotty. So I don't know anything about geography. I don't know where any
Yeah.
country is on a map. My son, who's 19 and loves geography, is like quizzing me on Europe and Africa. He's trying to teach me where I am in the world, and I really appreciate it because there's just huge gaps in my just basic elementary school knowledge. Like the other thing, Mark, I do not know my 7 times table or 8. I
I don't know
can't
any
do
of
it.
my times tables.
So that's not great. What's wrong with us?
Well,
How are we gonna fix
I just
this?
found different. Yeah, but I just found another way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too.
And now we've got a phone, we don't need to. No, sorry, sorry.
Right, so far from, like, the question of, yes, we do not know our best friends' phone numbers anymore, but you and I still can't multiply 7 times 8. I can't do it. I
Exactly.
don't know the
Yeah,
answer.
exactly.
Everyone out there is like, "It's 56." But is
Mm.
it? Or is it 58 or 52? I don't know.
I don't know.
54? I don't know.
I And has your ship sunk because you don't know it? I know the answer is
I'm
no.
doing
So
fine. I'm doing just fine.
when you had this revelation, I'm interested to know two things really. I'm interested to know what snapped. I'm interested to know how you found the wherewithal, because I don't want to use the word strength because I'm not thinking it's the right phrase, but the wherewithal to think this has got to change and this is how I'm going to do it. And then the other thing I'm interested in knowing is how quickly the changes you made impacted on your sleep and your creativity. If you're a writer, how quickly that then affected that.
Mm. Well, those are a lot of really good questions. Um, I think that one thing that I've come to learn as a woman in my mid 50s is that my energy comes and goes during the month. So there are times of the month when I am high energy, I can do anything. If you were like, I
Mm.
need you to clean out this home, the guy is a hoarder, he's been living here for 15 years, he hasn't taken out the trash once, I could do it on that day. And it just so happened to line up with the day after this terrible, all night phone thing. So I woke up and I was like, like, I can do anything today. And also a sense of, you know, I've had to, because I'm sensitive, an artist, I've had a lot of managing my brain chemistry in my life. I've had periods of depression, I've taken antidepressants, and so I know what it feels like when my brain is out of serotonin. I know what it feels like when my creativity is gone, when I'm really wrung out. And so all of these effects that I was experiencing from binging my phone, I recognized from binging other substances and from other low
Mm.
moments. And so it was like, it was just that enough is enough moment. This cannot go on. It was a very existential, quiet moment in my soul that was like, sweetie, you can't go on this way. You cannot continue to watch your phone, to play on your phone for 8 hours a day. This has to stop. And I think it's stopping today. So it was, yeah, I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful. I don't know if we have forces looking out for us or powers that are helping us. But for whatever reason, on that day, I was able to say, okay, that's over. And today it all begins. Today, the new way begins. And it was the start of a new month. So, analog April, it became a project, it became an experiment. And I really urge anyone who's going to try to break away from their phone, just think of it like an experiment, log it,
Mm.
take notes. That's what I did. Every day I took notes. Um,
But that removes the shame and the guilt as well. If
yeah,
you're doing it, that's a practical way of managing something that doesn't then need to have shame and guilt associated with it. And you can look at the end of that process and think, ah, okay, this is a problem. I need to attend to it.
that's right. That's absolutely right. So, since I developed this protocol, I've now worked with about 20 people, bringing them through my process, right? And 201, on this first day when they make this pledge, they feel this crazy excitement and energy. So the first thing I did on day one was I cleaned my office. And I had this box of cords. You know how we all have that box of cords? There's like a million cords. Some of them are for devices from the 1980s. Some of them you totally need. And you've got 8 of the ones you need, but also 8 of the ones that you'll never use again. So I cleaned out, I took all those cords and I separated them into piles and I made a system for organizing them and I put them in Ziplocs. And everyone who's done this work with me has been like, I just cleaned out my closet. There's something that's like, oh, it's like this big inhale. I'm free. I'm free for the next 30 days at least. It's the feeling you had sitting by the pool. I'm free of that effing thing. I'm free. I'm just gonna, oh my God, I can't look at it. I can't look at it. It's like weird because you just made the bargain with yourself, but your soul is so happy. Um, and then what happens is you have a few days of euphoria, and then you hit this day 4 that's awful. It's awful. You feel terrible, and you really do need to do a cold plunge or take a cold shower to get to help your brain. You have to give your brain a physiological treat, and believe it or not, it's pain. Pain is what you need to make your brain find its equilibrium again. And then what happens in week 2 is that you discover that there are things that you don't want to look at emotionally that are hard. And that you discover that the reason you've been looking at your phone is because you're lonely. Or the reason you're looking at your phone is that you're angry. You're angry that you, whatever it is, you lost your job, or that you're grieving because your mother's passed, or you're scared you're never going to find love again because you've had a divorce. These emotional things are real. They're really real. And we turn to our phone as we do for any substance to make life more bearable, to, take some of the pain away. So when you take that device, when you take something you're addicted to away, a lot of emotion comes up. So that's what happened to me. And I have many friends that I could reach out to. I was journaling. There are some great books. I love a good self help book, and I read some good self help books and just got into, okay, I've done so much therapy, but there's still stuff here that hurts. There's still fragments of trauma that I experienced as a child that still hurt. They still hurt. So, how are they immobilizing me? W and when you take them and look at them and talk to them and try to help yourself, it's bearable. You think that pain will be unbearable, but it is bearable, especially if you keep breathing and if you share it with people. Um, so after week 2, when the emotional stuff comes up, but I don't know if you found this, if you know about this research, but I found research that says that when a negative emotion comes up, if you can hold it and breathe through it and imagine it sort of like you're blowing, let's say you're feeling grief about someone who's passed. If you just imagine like you're blowing it into a big balloon, you just allow yourself to feel it, let it come up, let it get as big as it wants to be, just feel it, just stay with it, and keep breathing. After 90 seconds, it comes up like a wave and then it dissipates, goes away. It comes up, it goes out, it's gone. So if you just can sit with these emotions that feel so frightening, you just sit with them, breathe through them, they'll dissipate. And so that's what I did all through week 2. And let me tell you that in week 3 and 4, that's when I started to feel and look 10 years younger. Um, I mean, people watching this may be like, "Lady, you look 54." But I feel
You
44.
do.
I feel I feel so young again. I honestly do. And in week 3, I woke up with a novel spinning out of my brain. Like I had woken up from a dream, and in the dream, the beginning of this novel, it was a time travel novel about a woman who goes back in time to fix. There were time tourists. It was super cool premise. The whole thing was just rumbling around in my brain, and I thought, oh, my creativity is back. My creativity completely I mean, it was embarrassing. It was like, it doesn't even sound true, but it is true. My creativity completely came back, and my sleep got better, although I have trouble sleeping. I probably need to watch your podcast on caffeine, because my sleep is not great, but my sleep got better. The people I've worked with report that their sleep gets a lot better. So I think I've answered your questions. It was truly transformational. Now we're recording this in
And
2026,
that was within a month. Just to clarify, that was within a month.
4 weeks of
Wow.
complete abstinence from gaming and social media. And I would go out to lunch with people and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I have to show you this funny video." And I'd be like, "No, don't jump me. I'm not looking at it." Like a vampire. Yeah. Um, it's now 2 years later. It will be March soon. It will be April quite soon. I have not played a game in 2 years. The abstinence on that completely stuck. Now, because of what I'm doing and trying to spread the word, I've had to go on Instagram a bit. And, it's really interesting. My advice to people who do a month-long abstinence and then don't wanna be on Instagram again or TikTok or Facebook, um, but who have to be on it for work or have to post things for their business is very simple. You go on, you post, and you get off. Don't scroll. Don't consume. Only create. For me, I was able to do that for a while, but it's really seductive. So right now, I do look at Instagram a bit. Um, and every time I do, because of what I've been through, I go, okay, Emmy, what's wrong? What are you upset about? What are you hiding from?
Which is a useful tool.
It's useful. It's useful. And it is charming. I mean, Instagram is funny. I go on it and it's just pictures of babies laughing. I mean, I love babies. It makes me feel better to see a baby laughing, but I also know it's a hit of dopamine and serotonin that is gonna make me feel good and make me want more, and I'm
Mm.
really mad at it. So that helps me stay off. Like, wow,
Yeah, I
I
think that
hate how
does help.
addictive it is. I'm really
Yeah.
mad. So that helps me stay off.
And I hate what it did to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did did you I think I know the answer to this already, but before you came to the decision that something had to change, did you have guilt and shame attached to your behaviors with relation to the people around you?
I did. My biggest shame and guilt, and I still have some of this, is that I failed to prevent my kids from spending hours and hours a day on social media. Um, I knew in my heart, before I did any of this, I knew how bad this was. I guess also because our kids went to a Waldorf school growing up, so we gave them a childhood that had a lot of play, very little media. They did have some media, but it had a lot of outdoor play. So I knew that it was bad for them. I knew that a kid really needs to play in the dirt. Like every 11-year-old needs to be outside playing active games with their friends and being 11, 12, they still need to be playing. And yet my
Mm,
2 kids were spending hours, not at 12. Devices crept in. I think our daughter got her first phone when she was going into 8th grade, our son around the same time, and we didn't keep tabs on it. We didn't set limits. During the pandemic, they were on their phones all day long, every day. And so the guilt and the shame I feel is around my failure to prevent that from happening as a parent. And it's hard to say if I would even be able to do it differently now, knowing everything I know. I think I would. I think if I went back in time knowing everything I know, and if I went back to the year 2019, right before the pandemic, I would say, "Okay, we're going through a terrible pandemic. I know that your friends, you know, you can only see your friends online. I get it. I know this is awful. And yet, every day from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., our internet is going off and your phones are going to be in my bag, you know? And I know it's going to be awful. I know you're going to be mad at me. You're going to scream. You're going to cry. It's going to be terrible, but it's the rules. Sorry. I think I'd be able to hold that boundary now. But holding those boundaries, creating those boundaries is the biggest challenge for parents today, and the number one thing you can do is find other parents who feel the way you do. That's the first thing. Find parents with kids the ages of your kids who who have the same feelings and make a pact with them and try to just bring other people in on the pact. Hey, our pact is our kids are not getting phone. If you're the parent of a 5-year-old, then the pact is, okay, our kids are not getting phones until they're 16. Let's all hold this together. Don't get your kids an iPad, and nobody is allowed any iPad time when they're at each other's homes for these play dates. Because when kids are at
Mm,
a play date, they do not need any parental supervision. They're just gonna play. So,
yeah.
so no, absolutely no devices, no media when our kids are playing together. If it's too late and the genie's out of the bag, out of the bottle rather, who keeps a genie in a bag? Nobody.
It's cruel.
Genies, genies, you can't keep a genie in a bag. They'll punch right out. It's got to be a bottle.
It is a lot easier to get a genie back into a bag than into a bottle, though.
Maybe you put them in the bag first, and then you get the bottle
Yeah.
in the bag, and that must be how you do it. Uh,
Or at least if we're trying to get people off their phones, at least if we can get the genie back in the bag rather than in the bottle, it might be at least a step in the right
Right.
direction.
That's right. You can't get I think it's actually perfect. If you have a kid and the genie's out of the bottle, don't try to get it back in the bottle, try to get it in a bag.
Exactly.
And that looks like, when, like, when you're home, when your kid is, your kid gets a certain amount of phone time a day, and that's it. And you have to monitor it. It's such a pain in the butt. It's so awful to have to monitor it. Or you can do something like no phones during the week, but on the weekend, you can have it. Or whatever. You make your own, you'll find something. But yes, you must enforce boundaries. And the stricter they are, the better for your kid. But I do not judge any parent whose kid has a phone. I do not judge you. We did not know how addictive these things were. Now we know. Now you have to do better. And I'm sorry, it sucks.
And you're one of billions of people
And
who
you're
feel
one
the
of
same way, so
only
don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry at all. Don't worry at all. There's no shame, no shame here. It's a time for action.
I have to say, one of the things I discussed with Steve, who is the chap who was talking about the coffee,
Yeah.
is that I don't envy your task, and I didn't envy his, because it's very hard to not come across on paper or online or wherever you advertise your passions, to not come across as an evangelist
Yeah.
when actually, I mean, Steve said himself, I don't really care if somebody else doesn't give up coffee. What I care about is I've done my bit to try and help people realize the potential damage that they're experiencing, and I'm here if they need me. And
Mm,
I mean, I don't think he really meant that. I don't think he did really not care, but it doesn't affect him if somebody else doesn't do it. And I don't, I admire you and him, and I don't envy the path that you're walking in. That it's a hard path, but I do think in your case, I think the tide is changing on the digital world far greater than it is on the coffee world.
yeah.
Um, and I think everybody in the heart of hearts knows there is a wholesome decision to be made, and that
Yeah.
usually does involve less digital. Whereas I think, again, with the coffee, I don't think people perhaps feel quite as the same. But it's the same thing. It's still an addiction. It's still a,
Mhm.
it's just a different addiction, and a reliance, and a world that's convinced us, like you said about the tobacco. The reason they convince us these things are good is because they're making loads of money off them.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, yeah, it's really true. I really appreciate you seeing the challenge that Steve and I face. I don't want to be an evangelist. I don't want to lecture people. I don't want to be judgmental. I'm not at all interested in making people feel bad, not for 1 second. And also, most people's ears are pretty closed to this topic because they feel shame, especially young people's. Man, young people do not want to be told to put down their phones. They've been hearing that for years. People have been shaming them. I wish I could go back and not ever tell my kid, you need to put down your phone. Your brain is going to rot. You're spending too much time on
Yeah.
that thing. Even like, honey, I'm really worried. You're spending too much time on that. All of that stuff, like, it didn't help to tell them that they were doing something that's bad for them and dirty and ask them to control their own usage. They can't. They're children. I can't control. If you and I have trouble controlling our usage, how's an 11-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old whose brain is still developing? How are they going to be able to put limits on their usage? They just can't. So another thing I'd like to say to the parents or grandparents listening to this is that the very best way to help a teenager or a child with their phone addiction, if you see your kid and you're like, my kid has a full-blown phone addiction, the very best thing you can do is take the steps that I've outlined on this podcast and do a 1-month phone detox of your own. Do it
I agree.
yourself first, and then you will experience it. You'll understand how much better you feel. And if you do what I did, which was I also during that month, I remember there is one thing I forgot to say. I read about brain science the whole month long. I kept researching. So I was doing this um, I was feeling things happening in my brain and things starting to like knit together while I was reading about the default mode network. I was reading about stress hormones, reading about the displacement hypothesis, things that we've talked about on this podcast. And so if you, the adult in the family, does a 1-month phone detox and you learn, you're going to be at the dinner table going, oh my God, you guys, you're never going to believe this. But did you know that most people in my generation spend 5 hours a day on their phone? That's 4 months a year. And everyone's going to go, what? Dad, you're kidding me. You're crazy. 4 months a year. And you're like, yeah, most people my age are spending 4 months of a year on their phone. Isn't that nuts? And everyone will go, yeah, oh my God. Meanwhile, no shame there, no judgment. Nobody's been made to feel bad, but your sincere enthusiasm about what you're learning and how you're feeling, that's how you lead, that's how you teach, that's how you get the word out about this.
It's interesting because you said earlier when you were talking about playing the game for 5 to 7 hours and into the early hours of the morning, and one of the things I thought about was for me, that in doing something like that, there would be I would have guilt like it was my dirty secret that I was doing that and perhaps not share it. And I equally think I don't have time to go to the gym. I equally think I don't have time to do this or I don't have time to do that. If it's something you really want to do, you'll find the time, and that's what you want to do because you're addicted to, or because you've done it so much that it's become the norm.
Yeah.
And what you've just said is that I think one of the best things we can do is lead through inspiration. So when you're enthusiastic about something, people think, wow, they're enthusiastic about that. It must be quite good. And you don't even have to instruct others to do it or force them to do it, because you can say, well, they can look at you and say, well, when did you get the chance to become a black belt in judo? Well, it's because I stopped using my phone 5 days a week, but that's it. You become
Totally.
enthusiastic about your passions. And it doesn't, even the fact that I've found 5 hours a week to go and play Dungeons and Dragons, they might not want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but they might want to go and learn pottery, or they might want, whatever it is. And that demonstrates by example that you found the time to do it and they could too. So
You're absolutely man, you're so perceptive. You're absolutely right, and that's what we were talking about before, the displacement hypothesis, right? Like, one thing you get back when you put down your phone is all this time. So suddenly you get to do all
yeah.
this fun stuff, and I think it's absolutely right that if you're talking about that at the dinner table, that your kid's gonna be like, "Wow, I could do judo. I could do pottery. That's really cool. I wanna do those
Right.
things." Like, the the person who instigates this kind of change sets off a little reaction, a little chain reaction of joy because they're doing things that are joyful.
But you're not allowed on your smartphone to find the courses. You've got to go for a walk and find them on the local notice board.
I love that.
One of the things I try to ask every guest that I have, and I have forgotten just recently, is what is your favorite pie filling?
Mm. Oh gosh, I'm so glad you asked because when I was thinking about you coming to visit Los Angeles, there's a place here called the Apple Pan. It is a famous Los Angeles restaurant. Now they they have hamburgers, they have cheeseburgers and fries. They're garbage. Listen, they're not any good, Mark. We're not
Oh.
going there for hamburgers. We're going for hamburgers. We're going to a place called High Low that has the best burger.
I've heard about Hilo. I've been told about, and apparently the ethos of the actual business is excellent as
It
well.
is. It's excellent. You'll never have a better burger. But then we'll go over to the Apple Pan. Now, my favorite pie filling is chocolate cream pie. I am a sucker for a chocolate cream pie. But at the Apple Pan, every pie they have is delicious. Their apple pie is great. If it's in season, the strawberry rhubarb is great. They have a boysenberry pie.
Love rhubarb.
Have you had a boysenberry pie ever? I
No,
think it's an
I've never even
American
heard of a
berry.
boysenberry.
Yeah, I think it's an American berry. So you're going to have to try that. It's quite
It's not selling itself, I must say. I think it needs a new marketing team.
Well, their boysenberries are delicious, and the apple pan is it's super old timey too. It's very like 1940s. You'll like it.
Well, very interestingly, within sort of 40 miles of where I live is what's called the Rhubarb Triangle, and it's the
Mm.
world's primary rhubarb production area. And apart because the best rhubarb is grown in the dark. Did you know that?
Really? No.
Yeah. And it's called forcing rhubarb. So it doesn't
Mm.
gain the color, but that's supposed to be the best rhubarb. But
Mm.
they grow it in these big sheds in the darkness. And apparently it grows so fast. When you go in there, you can hear it creaking as it grows.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Yeah,
How often
that is
is it
cool.
in season there? Is it a short growing season?
I, 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 I don't know. Most people, when I was a kid, had rhubarb in their garden
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
Um, and then, but I don't. I presume they produce it all year round.
Wow.
I would imagine they heat it somehow. I don't really know, to be honest. I'll
Well,
have to look
listen,
into it.
I'm
But they,
sorry. I don't mean to invite myself to your house, but
you're welcome. No,
okay.
you're welcome. I was going to say that about your son as well, but no, please come. But I think somebody invited me just very recently in next month to the rhubarb festival or something that's
Oh my
down
god.
there. So maybe I'll go. I'll
Please,
take loads of photographs of rhubarb for you.
I'd like to hear the sound of rhubarb growing. I'd really like to hear
Yeah.
that.
You get fresh rhubarb, right?
We get fresh rhubarb, but it's specific time of the year that you get it here in the States.
So you know what the noise is like. You can
I can
imagine the
imagine
noise,
it.
like polystyrene.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
Yeah, but apparently that's the noise anyway.
Oh,
So, but yeah,
man.
I would But the only thing I might have to do before we go to this pie shop that I'm coming to LA to sample with you, I might have to call ahead and say, right, I'm coming to make a savory pie. I'm going to make an English pie because
Mm,
in the UK, if somebody says, right, I'm going out for a pie, chances are they're going for a steak pie or a chicken and mushroom pie,
mm.
and if we can't do that, I may have to make one at your house instead.
Oh, man. This is gonna be a
Or my
party.
wife. My wife is amazing at making
Really.
pies.
I think we're gonna have a really good time when you and your wife come to visit. This is gonna be
Yeah, and
great.
when you come here, and you can have fish and chips because we live in the best fish and chips place in the world
I
by the
love
sea
fish
as
and
well. So
chips. I love fish and chips.
yeah,
This is okay, it's happening.
okay, we're on. We're winning. Emmy, thank you so much for joining us. I've really loved our chat. Um, I really would be interested in coming to see you in LA, and I really hope your campaign gets a forward movement. I think it's something we all need to be a bit more on board with.
Thank you so much, Mark. It is a joy to get to sit here and chew the crust with you. And I love this podcast, and I hope that your readers and watchers engage. And I will come back and look at the comments, and we can all talk and chat and all be friends because that's what being on this show feels like.
Mega. Well, certainly a friend to me, so thank you ever so much.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Emmy, thank you. That was honest, generous, and grounding. If this conversation made you think differently about your phone, your creativity, or how present you feel. You can find all of Emmy's work linked in the description below. As always, if this episode has helped you, please share it with someone who might need it. And remember, we don't fix everything at once, we just chew the crust. So please look after yourselves, look after each other, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much. Bye bye.